The war in Europe ended not with celebration, but with a heavy, uncertain silence. On May 8, 1945, millions of German soldiers found themselves suddenly without orders, standing in ruined cities, holding empty rifles. The familiar sounds of war vanished, replaced by the eerie quiet of defeat. For these men, the end of fighting marked the start of a new struggle: survival. Scattered across Europe, hungry and exhausted, some tried to walk home, others simply waited for the Allies to decide their fate. 11 million men, fathers, sons, brothers, were now without a country or a purpose. The world had waited for this surrender, but for the German soldier, it was a surrender of future as much as arms. Would they be seen as criminals, or as men who had followed orders? Their fate depended on who captured them. As Allied armies advanced, German soldiers surrendered by the thousands, emerging from forests and ruins, faces marked by fear and fatigue. The grand promises of the Third Reich had turned to dust. The empire was rubble. For the individual soldier, ideology faded, replaced by the simple hope of going home. But home was distant, and the path was uncertain. The scale of surrender was unprecedented, millions in limbo, waiting for judgment. The end of the war was not an end to hardship, but the beginning of a long, perilous journey. The silence of surrender was filled with dread, not relief. The world moved forward, but for these men, time seemed to stop. Their struggle was no longer for victory, but for dignity and survival. The war's end was just the start of another ordeal. For many, the journey home would take years, if it happened at all. Why does this story matter? Because it's about people, not just armies or nations. Each of the 11 million German soldiers had a name, a family, a story. To understand the aftermath, we must look beyond headlines and see the human cost. Their story is rarely told, uncomfortable, complex, but essential. After the war, Germany focused on rebuilding, often pushing aside the experiences of ordinary soldiers. Forgetting is not healing. Ignoring these stories erases vital lessons. Telling the story doesn't excuse the crimes of the Nazi regime. The Holocaust and Nazi aggression must never be forgotten. But millions of Germans were conscripted, swept up in a war they didn't start. Their fate reveals the full tragedy of World War II. In any conflict, the line between victim and perpetrator is rarely clear. This is a story of broken humanity. Today, as conflict persists worldwide, these lessons are more relevant than ever. The fate of these soldiers warns us. Peace is fragile, and war's aftermath can be as devastating as war itself. By listening to these forgotten voices, we gain empathy and a chance to build a better future. In spring 1945, Europe was devastated, cities reduced to rubble, millions displaced. German soldiers returned to a nation that no longer existed, its government dissolved, its leader dead. Chaos reigned, the chain of command was broken. Allied armies poured in from all sides, leaving German soldiers with nowhere to run. The German military collapsed, entire armies surrendered at once. Millions rushed to surrender to the Western Allies, hoping for better treatment than from the Soviets. The Allies, unprepared for the flood of prisoners, set up massive open-air camps, little more than fenced fields. Germany was now occupied, its infrastructure shattered, its people starving. The so-called thousand-year Reich had lasted just 12 years, ending in apocalypse. For the 11 million in uniform, the future was a terrifying blank. They became prisoners, subject to the will of their conquerors. Their journey through the aftermath was just beginning. The policies of the victors would shape their fate. A German soldier's fate depended on who captured him. The Western Allies, bound by the Geneva Convention, faced an overwhelming number of prisoners. To cope, they reclassified Germans as disarmed enemy forces, sidestepping some Geneva protections. This meant less food, shelter, and care than the rules required. Conditions in Western camps were harsh, crowded, muddy, and short on supplies. In the East, the situation was far worse. The Soviets, who had suffered immense losses, sought revenge, not mercy. German prisoners were marched to labor camps in the Soviet Union, gulags, where conditions were brutal. Food was scarce, medical care absent, and work relentless. Prisoners rebuilt the cities their armies had destroyed, often in deadly climates. Of 3 million Germans taken by the Soviets, over 1 million died in captivity. This was one of the darkest chapters of the war's aftermath. The journey home for German soldiers was long and uncertain. In the West, releases began quickly. Allies needed workers to rebuild Germany. farmers and miners were prioritized for release, but many were transferred to other Allied nations. France took over 1 million prisoners for forced labor, clearing mines, rebuilding, farming. Conditions were harsh. Some men weren't freed until 1948. In the East, the ordeal was far longer. The Soviets used prisoners as labor to repair their devastated country. Mass releases didn't begin until 1949. Some men weren't freed until 1956. Many returned to find homes destroyed, families gone, and a country transformed. They were strangers in their own land, haunted by years of captivity. The road home was as much psychological as physical. For many, the struggle to find their place in post-war Germany never truly ended. The war's shadow lingered for a lifetime. Behind the numbers are individual stories. Take Carl, captured by Americans and sent to a POW camp in Texas. He found decent food, shelter, and even learned some English, an unexpected kindness far from the front. Carl returned home in 1946, carrying memories of a strange, humane captivity. Contrast Hans, captured by Soviets and marched to Siberia. He endured starvation, brutal labor, and watched many die. Hans survived 5 years in the Gulag, returning home a changed man. Not all prisoners were German. Many were conscripted from occupied Europe. Their fates were complicated. Some sent home as collaborators, others lost in the sea of gray uniforms. For many, the end of war brought not liberation, but a new kind of limbo. These stories humanize the statistics. Some found unexpected kindness, others faced unimaginable cruelty. Some were held for months, others for a decade. Some worked on American farms, others died in Soviet mines. The fate of German soldiers after WWII is not one story, but millions, each a testament to war's unpredictable aftermath. Every soldier was an individual, with hopes, fears, and a unique journey. Their experiences remind us of the personal cost of conflict. War's end did not mean peace for all. The years of captivity left deep scars on Germany. Over 1 million German soldiers died after the war, most in Soviet camps. Their absence haunted families and communities for decades. Those who returned, the Heimkehrer, were often physically and psychologically wounded. Many suffered chronic illness, trauma, and alienation. Their silence created a hidden suffering in post-war society. The loss of so many men left a missing generation. Women, the Trümmerfrauen, led the rebuilding, filling roles left vacant by absent men. This demographic shift shaped German society for years. Over time, Germany began to confront this painful past. Memorials and research brought these stories to light. Support groups formed for survivors and families. The scars of captivity became part of Germany's reckoning with its history. The story of 11 million German soldiers after WWII reveals the true cost of conflict. Victory and defeat are never simple. Both sides bore heavy burdens. For Germany, defeat was a drawn-out tragedy, not a single day. The consequences of war ripple for decades, touching everyone. This history forces us to see the person behind the uniform. Their treatment, ranging from humane to brutal, reflects the victor's values. Remembering these stories isn't about excusing the past, but understanding it. The fate of these men is a quiet epic of survival and suffering. The echoes of their story still shape debates about justice and humanity today. War's greatest casualty is always humanity itself, and the hardest work of peace begins when the fighting stops.